For nearly 10 years, I lived and breathed one mission: to build a technology that could save lives by detecting cardiac failure early before it became irreversible. This wasn't some corporate ambition or a quest for accolades. It was personal. Years ago, I lost my father suddenly to heart failure. Doctors said there were no warning signs. He was only 47. That loss haunted me in ways words can't capture. I swore I would build something that could prevent that pain for other families. That's how I found myself at Luxora Health, a medtech startup fueled by brilliant minds and boundless ambition. I was a software engineer, but the work demanded so much more: understanding biology, hardware integration, AI modeling. I was obsessed with creating a wearable patch, something tiny and discreet that could monitor the heart's rhythms continuously and adapt its analysis uniquely to each patient. I called it internally Pulsatag. The early days were brutal. The first prototypes looked like science experiments, clunky, wired, and unreliable. Sensors needed recalibrating constantly. The AI models couldn't handle the noisy data. I remember the nights hunched over the workbench, soldering connections, debugging code while half asleep. My apartment became a makeshift lab. I spent weekends reviewing test results, refining algorithms, tweaking hardware specs. I wasn't alone. I built a small team of engineers who believed in the vision: hardware folks, data scientists, clinical consultants. Together, we pushed forward, iteration after iteration. Slowly, we hit milestones. Battery life improved. The patch skin sensor array became sensitive enough to pick up subtle heart rate variability changes. Our AI models moved from rule-based systems to adaptive neural networks that learned each user's baseline cardiac signature. I gave internal demos to stakeholders. Everyone said it was promising. But that word, promising, felt like a brick wall. Danica Ross was my manager, and the biggest obstacle between me and success. She had a magnetic charisma and an iron grip on the innovation pipeline. While I was obsessed with technical excellence, she was focused on corporate politics and shareholder optics. Danica dismissed Pulsatag as premature and not strategically aligned. She pushed me to focus on safer projects with faster ROI. I pleaded for more support, more funding. She politely smiled and said, "Innovation takes patience." I knew it was more than patience. It was politics. Behind closed doors, Danica worked to sideline me, refusing to escalate Pulsatag to the board. When I showed data, she asked for more proof of concept. When I proposed pilot trials, she cited budget constraints. My frustration grew, but I remained determined. Then came the Global Innovation Summit, the Met Gala of MedTech. I wasn't invited. No email. No mention. No seat in the back. I watched from my apartment, knees tucked to my chest, streaming the keynote like a fanboy, hoping for some dazzling discovery to reignite my dwindling optimism. Then I saw her, Danica, striding on stage in heels sharp enough to slice ambition, wearing a tailored navy suit and my prototype. My prototype, the screen behind her bloomed with light. She beamed like she belonged to the future. Introducing Pulsatag Alpha, she declared. The logo pulsed on screen, matching a heartbeat. Luxora's revolutionary leap in cardiac diagnostics. And my heart stopped. Because it was my leap. She pitched every feature: the sweat sensor integration, the predictive arrhythmia mapping, the dual-channel feedback loop I stayed up 74 hours to perfect. Even the titanium mesh band, an idea born from watching my grandmother scratch at her old plastic monitor. All of it. My design, my science, my pain. But not my name, not once. She called it Luxora's greatest collaboration. The crowd applauded like thunder flashbulbs, standing ovation. Investors shook her hand. Journalists scribbled like their pens were on fire. And me. I sat in stunned silence. The room around me didn't feel real, just stale air and the low hum of betrayal. I reached for my notes, the original schematics, the testing logs with my name, as if they might reassure me I hadn't imagined the last 2 years of my life. Danica smiled wide, graceful, composed. Like this moment was always hers. She posed beside the Pulsatag Alpha, like it was her child, her brainchild. No stammer, no nerves, just glittering lies wrapped in poise. Later that week, Luxora announced her promotion. Chief Innovation Officer. Meanwhile, I drowned in obscurity, clutching my dignity like a tattered patent. She knew. She knew it was mine. We had built it together in back rooms, on napkins, during sleepless hackathons and caffeine-fueled test marathons. She said I was paranoid. Said I should trust her. Said she'd make sure the credit gets shared. I believed her. Now she owned the narrative. She was the visionary. I was a ghost. That night, I didn't sleep. I reread every email, every message. I saw where I'd let her take the lead in meetings, where I deferred in public and worked in private. I saw every red flag I painted gold. But the worst part, it wasn't just the theft. It was that no one noticed I was gone. 1 week later, I received an email from HR due to departmental restructuring. Your position has been eliminated. Severance package details are attached. We thank you for your contributions. No call, no meeting, no eye contact. Just a subject line and a PDF attachment. No mention of Pulsatag Alpha. No acknowledgement of the years I gave. Not a single word about the prototype now headlining tech blogs and investor decks across the globe. Just eliminated. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I quietly stood, grabbed the box I kept under my desk just in case, and packed up what little I had left. A mug, some notebooks, a dying cactus. My pride didn't make the cut. As I walked out of Luxora's glass cathedral of ambition, sunlight gleaming mockingly off its mirrored facade, I felt nothing, not anger, not grief, just that cold, metallic hum of inevitability, because deep down, I'd seen this coming. The moment Danica smiled on that stage, I knew my name was being erased in real time. This wasn't a sudden restructuring. This was a purge, a cleanup job, one less witness to a theft dressed in brilliance. They took my idea. Then they took my job. And they left me with a polite goodbye and a severance package. It was a betrayal, yes, but not a surprise. But what Danica didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment all along. Every sleepless night, every sidelong glance, every meeting where she spoke louder than me, it taught me something. Protect what's yours, so I did. For years, I'd kept meticulous records. Schematics, test logs, feedback loops, prototype iterations, meeting transcripts, screenshots, even voice memos. Every innovation that made Pulsatag Alpha shine had a timestamp and my fingerprint. I didn't trust the cloud. I trusted insurance. All of it was encrypted and archived on a matte black hard drive I called Aurora because she represented the real dawn, not the corporate mirage Luxora sold to the press. That night, in the low hum of my apartment, I pulled Aurora from the back of my desk drawer. The plastic was cool in my palm, smooth like a weapon still in its sheath. I plugged it in. One folder blinked to life, Pulsetag Nova. While Danica paraded a stolen blueprint on global stages, I had moved on in secret. Nova was the next leap. The version I never showed her. The version I never trusted Luxora to own. Nova was mine. Entirely smaller footprint. Smarter sensors, a fully adaptive neural mesh that didn't just monitor, it learned. Real-time physiological feedback, behavioral adjustment over time, predictive response mechanisms tuned to an individual's unique biometric language. Not a template, not a dataset, a relationship, where Alpha mimicked insight, Nova evolved. It didn't just follow, it anticipated. It saw around corners Alpha could even recognize. Danica had stolen the shell. I had kept the soul. And as the folder opened, and those glowing schematics flooded my screen, I realized something else. They hadn't buried me. They de-freed me. The betrayal still simmered under my skin. But now, it had purpose. I scrolled through my contacts, heart pounding, until I landed on the one name I deflagged months ago. like a lifeboat I wasn't supposed to need. Isaiah Barlow. A venture capitalist with a sharp eye and a sharper memory. Months ago, after a quiet demo and a half-hour of espresso, fueled brainstorming, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "If Luxora ever undervalues you, come talk to me. I back builders, not brands." So I did. I called. No pleasantries, no slides. Just truth. Danica stole Pulsetag. Luxora erased me, but IV built something better, something they don't even know exists. There was a pause. Then, come in. Now, within 48 hours, Novapath Labs was born. We moved fast under radar, off-grid. Lawyers drafted incorporation papers, while I secured exclusive IP rights. Every file in Aurora was time-stamped, tagged, and traceable. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was proving I was the origin. Isaiah didn't blink. He wired the seed round before the ink was dry. We rented a converted industrial loft with exposed pipes, humming servers, and floors that creaked like secrets being whispered. It smelled like metal, ambition, and second chances. Novapath wasn't just a lab. It was a warning shot. I wasn't building a competitor. I was building an evolution. The kind of evolution that would make Luxora S-Board question every decision they ever made, especially the one to let me walk out the door without so much as a handshake. They thought they'd stolen everything. But what they really did was set me free. And this time, there would be no name but mine on the patent. 4 former Luxora engineers joined me within days each one, brilliant, bruised, and fed up. They hadn't just quit the company. They had escaped Danica. Her leadership had driven them out one by one, ideas ignored, voices silenced, credit stolen. They walked away carrying quiet resentment and untapped genius. I gave them a reason to come back to the table. No NDAs, no corporate chains, just conviction. We weren't building for quarterly reports. We were building because we believed in what Pulsetag was supposed to be before it was stolen. Diluted, polished for press. We started from zero, stripped the codebase bare, scrapped the old architecture, burned the bloat. What emerged wasn't a rehash, it was a rebirth. Nova was lean, clean, alive. We integrated real, time anomaly tracking that adapted on the fly. Customizable patient profiles that went beyond basic biometrics, factoring lifestyle, medications, even sleep rhythms. The alert system became intelligent, empathetic, reducing false positives to near zero by learning each user's physiological baseline. No more panic, triggering false alarms. No more missed signals in the noise. Nova didn't just listen, it understood. Every night blurred into morning, energy drinks, late, night coding marathons, heated debates over algorithm thresholds. But none of us complained. We were breathing life into something honest, something ours. This wasn't just tech, it was a reckoning. Nova was what Pulsetag should have been before politics poisoned it. Before branding mattered more than lives. And this time, we weren't asking for permission. We were coming for everything they took. A global titan in digital health. Metacentrics had reviewed Pulsetag Alpha months ago and walked away unimpressed. Too rigid, too static, too safe. They said, but Nova caught their attention, not through press releases, not through investor hype. Through whispers, a demo leaked to a clinical contact, a rumor passed across biotech roundtables. A startup daring to solve what legacy devices only measured. Then came the call. A video meeting. 4 executives, straight faces. 1 sentence. Deliver a working prototype in 90 days, or we walk. No grace period, no second chances. It was brutal. It was perfect. We had 1296 hours to rewrite the rules. And we did, where others would have panicked. We sharpened focus like a laser beam. The loft turned into a pressure chamber. Whiteboards bled equations. Laptops blinked like nervous systems. Our walls vibrated with the pulse of invention. The challenge was massive, but the momentum was bigger. We streamlined the neural core, optimized the adaptive feedback to function across diverse cardiac profiles, added real-time behavioral correlation tracking stress triggers, sleep disruptions, and even post-exertion spikes. Nova didn't just detect it contextualized. By week 5, we ran our first controlled trial. Nova SAI outperformed traditional diagnostics by 20%. 20% in early-stage cardiac irregularities, where minutes can mean the difference between a scare and a funeral. Metacentrics didn't just take notice, they leaned in. The whispers around Nova grew louder. Conferences, medical journals, quiet inquiries from hospitals still locked into outdated monitoring systems, and Luxora, still parading Pulsatag Alpha like it was the future, unaware the real future had already lapped them. Nova wasn't just a contender anymore. Nova was a threat, and we weren't too slowing down. Then Luxora struck. They didn't send an email. They sent a warhead. A 57-page lawsuit landed on my desk, like a loaded weapon alleging intellectual property theft, breach of confidentiality, and unlawful competition. They weren't just trying to stop us. They wanted to bury us. Cease operations immediately, the demand letter read, or face injunction. They accused me of stealing what they never gave me credit for, claimed Nova was built on their backbone, that I had taken what was theirs and dared to outshine them. But what they didn't realize, what they never bothered to understand, was that I had been meticulous from day one. Every line of code, every prototype sketch, every micro-adjustment, all of it logged, dated, archived, notarized, tracked through version control. Pulsatag Alpha and Nova shared only a ghost of an origin, and I had the proof to exercise it. Our lawyers didn't flinch. They filed a brutal countersuit within 48 hours alleging defamation, anti-competitive threats, and bad faith litigation. Depositions followed. Courtroom sessions stretched for weeks. I watched Danica take the stand, polished and precise, spinning fiction with practiced ease. But truth doesn't blink. We submitted the full Aurora archive, time-stamped video walkthroughs, devlogs with biometric, authenticated entries, patent filings months older than their lawsuit. Then came the verdict. The courtroom fell silent as the judge looked over her glasses and said, "The evidence is clear. This technology was developed independently, and the court finds no basis for Luxora's claims. The defendants may continue operations without restriction." We didn't cheer. We didn't need to. The silence that followed was louder than any victory speech. Luxora had tried to weaponize their power and failed. They tried to erase me a second time and validated me instead. We walked out of that courtroom taller. Nova was not only protected, it was unstoppable. When James Foster walked into our lab, everything went quiet. The CTO of Metacentrics, one of the most respected minds in medtech, and one of the most skeptical, didn't believe in hype. He believed in performance, and he'd flown across the country to see Nova in action with his own eyes. Not another demo reel, no entourage, no assistants, just him, a folded notepad, and the clinical stare of someone who'd seen 1,000 prototypes, promise the moon, and deliver a flashlight. He rolled up his sleeve. "I'll be your test subject," he said. "Let's see if it's as smart as you say." We applied the patch, calibrated Nova S adaptive mesh to his wrist. No preloaded data, no shortcuts. 37 seconds in, Nova pinged. A subtle flag, a minor irregularity barely outside clinical thresholds. But there, James frowned. "That's odd," he tapped the readout. "Your device just caught a P-wave anomaly. That's not in my chart. IV never reported it. Never been diagnosed." He looked at me, not as a skeptic now, but something closer to shaken. "How did it catch that?" I smiled. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. "It learns from you. It doesn't just compare you to a database. It builds a baseline from your own body, your own rhythm, your own story." James didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he nodded, slowly, deliberately. He pulled a pen from his jacket. He signed the partnership agreement that same day. No red lines, no drawn, out negotiations, just a signature, a handshake, and a quiet "you were going to change everything." Metacentrics would integrate Nova into its clinical trials immediately. Luxora had walked away from the future. Now the future was walking away from them. Press releases, red carpet tech expos. Danica, radiant and rehearsed, stood at the podium as if she would invented the heartbeat itself. But beneath the polish was rot. Within days, hospitals reported problems. False alerts, confusing outputs, inconsistent readings. Patients panicked. Doctors lost trust. One respected researcher published a brutal teardown in a leading journal, citing Alpha-S lack of adaptability, high false positive rate, and dangerously outdated architecture. It was clinical, merciless, accurate. Luxora-S stock bled, 12%. Gone. Investors fumed. Boardrooms trembled. And just like that, their golden launch began to look more like a glossy obituary. Then came the offer. They wanted to buy me wrap a bow around the very technology they had tried to destroy, and parade it under the same roof that had once shown me the door. It was a tempting deal: power, prestige, redemption in their headlines, but I didn't build Nova to be folded back into the machine that broke me. I built it to be better, so I declined. Instead, I offered them something else: a licensing agreement. At a premium, Nova-S Core AI would be the brain behind Alpha, but on my terms, with my watermark, with my margins. They signed it. They had no choice. 6 months later, NovaPath Labs powers diagnostics in 10 countries. Hospitals, clinics, research institutes, emergency response networks, they trust Nova because it works, because it listens, because it learns. Danica resigned in silence. No press release, no farewell tour. Just a footnote in the same news cycle that celebrated Nova-S expansion into Latin America and our partnership with the NHS sometimes. I pass Luxora-S headquarters, glass walls, perfect landscaping, sleek, polished, but hollow. They thought firing me was the end. It was only the beginning, because when they stole my work, they didn't parry me. They handed me my future.